I've spent 20 years learning how health clubs work, from training and sales to management, accounting, and HR. And at 44, I can finally see the club I'd build, smaller, personal, and full of people who actually know each other's names. The hard part isn't whether I know the business. It's whether I can leave a good career without turning loyalty into resentment. And whether the numbers give me the right to sign that lease. So I decided to find out. My name is April. I'm 44, and I have worked in health clubs for basically my entire adult life. I've counted reps, taught classes, followed up with leads, managed teams, reviewed payroll, helped solve staffing problems, and learned that the towel situation can become a 5-alarm emergency faster than anyone expects. And honestly, I have done well. I wasn't trying to escape a disaster. I respected the organization I worked for, and I knew my voice had been heard over the years. But there is a difference between contributing to someone else's vision and waking up responsible for your own. I kept imagining a club where the equipment was complete, without being endless, where the staff knew the members, where coaching wasn't something you had to hunt for, where people felt connected to a purpose, not processed through a turnstile. That idea kept coming back. I wasn't trying to build a giant fitness center. My ceiling was 15,000 square feet, and the version I started modeling was closer to 12,000. It would still feel like a real gym. Free weights, strength machines, personal training, coaching, a few treadmills, clean lockers, and basic but nice showers. Just not 20 treadmills. 3, maybe 4 if I was feeling reckless. The point wasn't to make a large club in miniature. It was to build a complete neighborhood gym around attention. The members I had in mind could afford a more personal experience. Some might even keep their larger club membership and use mine for coaching, community, or the days when they wanted to be recognized instead of scanned. That sounded logical to me. But sounding logical and surviving contact with numbers are very different experiences. So I gave myself a rule. I would not start with a lease. I would start with questions. The first question was whether this complimentary idea was something people actually did. What I found surprised me. In national research covering how Americans used fitness facilities in 2024, more than a quarter of members belonged to more than one facility. Among studio users, more than 75% maintained at least one additional membership. That didn't prove anyone in my fictional trade area would join my club. National data is not a signed membership agreement, but it did tell me the behavior wasn't strange. The same research found that 23% of members used a personal trainer, and 32% participated in small group training. Coaching wasn't a side note. It was part of how millions of people already used fitness facilities. That gave me my first small win. I could finally explain the club in one sentence, a complete neighborhood gym scaled around coaching and recognition, instead of volume and luxury. For the first time, I wasn't describing a feeling, I was describing a business. Then I priced the fictional version, and this is where the phrase small gym started doing some very ambitious work. For the story model, I used 12,000 square feet. Design, legal work, permits, and deposits, $160,000. Build out, plumbing, showers, and building systems, $760,000. Equipment, delivery, and installation, $520,000. Technology, security, furniture, and signage, $140,000. Pre-opening payroll and marketing, $120,000. A $200,000 contingency, and $500,000 in working capital. Total illustrative funding target, $2.4 million. Those are scenario inputs, not vendor quotes or a promise of what a gym costs. Rent, labor, construction, insurance, utilities, and permits change dramatically by location. But the categories mattered, because leaving one out didn't make it free, it just made it a surprise. My monthly model used $145,000 in fixed operating costs. Blended dues and coaching revenue averaged $175 per member, with $12 in variable cost. The break-even formula was simple: fixed costs divided by revenue per member minus variable cost per member. That put break-even at 890 members. At 1,050 members, the illustrative model produced about $26,000 a month before taxes and owner distributions. Now, I had a second small win. Not because the number was comfortable. It wasn't. But anxiety had turned into a target I could challenge. The spreadsheet wasn't the part that kept me awake. Loyalty was. I had relationships. I had history. I knew that even a smaller club could look like competition from the other side of the table. I didn't want to pretend that calling it collaboration would magically make every concern disappear. And I didn't want to build my future by quietly borrowing from someone else's business. Their member list, their pricing files, their staff relationships, or anything I only knew because they trusted me. My first instinct was to explain everything immediately. Then I changed the order. Before asking anyone to understand my plan, I needed to understand my obligations. That wasn't fear. That was professionalism. One important thing I learned was that I couldn't rely on headlines about non-competes. The Federal Trade Commission's nationwide rule is not in effect. The agreement, the state, confidentiality, non-solicitation, outside work rules, and the actual facts still matter. So in the story, I had the employment path reviewed before I tested demand or contacted anyone connected to my employer. I made the boundaries simple. No employer data, no recruiting staff, no approaching current members, no using confidential vendor terms, no pretending a friendly conversation was legal advice. I also had to think about how I would staff my own club. Calling every coach an independent contractor because it looked convenient wasn't a plan. Federal tax guidance looks at behavioral control, financial control, and the actual relationship, not just the title on the agreement. That was the larger lesson. Owning the vision meant owning the unglamorous parts too. Once those boundaries were clear, I could prepare an honest conversation. I wasn't proposing a copy of the existing club. I was proposing a different scale, a different member experience, and where it made sense, clean, reciprocal referrals. I explained the concept without criticizing the place that had helped build my career. I acknowledged that it could still feel competitive. I showed the boundaries I had put in place, and I made it clear that I wanted to leave professionally if the plan moved forward. The response in this composite story wasn't instant celebration. That would have felt fake. There was surprise, there were questions, there was time to think. But preparation changed the tone. I wasn't announcing a secret operation. I was presenting a considered next step. The relationship didn't have to end for my role to change, and that was a bigger win than getting permission. Because this wasn't about asking someone else to approve my ambition. It was about handling that ambition with integrity. Next came demand. I tested the concept independently, outside the employer's member base. I asked about price, coaching, equipment, visit frequency, current memberships, and what personal actually meant to people. Friendly encouragement counted as encouragement. It did not count as revenue. So the fictional lease gate was 250 refundable founding commitments. The first 25 felt exciting. The first 100 made the idea feel visible. At 250, I finally had something stronger than compliments. Not certainty, evidence. And evidence earned the plan a look at real space. The space had to pass 5 gates. First, legal and relationship clearance. Second, independent demand. Third, committed funding plus the operating reserve. Fourth, a downside scenario I could actually live with. And fifth, the building itself. That meant permitted use, parking, HVAC, electrical capacity, floor loading, acoustics, fire and life safety, insurance, showers, plumbing, and accessibility. Even the equipment layout mattered. Federal accessibility standards require clear floor space positioned for transfer or use by someone seated in a wheelchair. Accessibility wasn't a note to add after ordering machines. It belonged in the floor plan. The lease also needed the right contingencies, build-out responsibilities, rent timing, and limits on personal exposure. One by one, the store's 5 gates turned green. Then there was nothing left for the spreadsheet to decide. It was my turn. I signed the lease. Not because I had run out of time, not because staying would have made me a failure, and not because experience removed the risk. I signed because experience helped me define the risk. Then the equipment arrived, and I learned that 3 treadmills still take up an impressive amount of floor when they are sitting in shipping material. The racks went in. The showers were finished. The front desk came together. The empty room started looking like the place I had been describing. For 20 years, I had helped other health clubs operate. Now, I was responsible for the feeling inside this one. On opening day, people walked in and trained. Coaches knew why they were there. Members stopped to talk. The club felt active without feeling anonymous. Was it exactly the way I had imagined it? No. Real plans get fingerprints on them, but the purpose was there. My answer after 40 was yes. I could build my own health club. But the useful part wasn't simply taking the leap. It was learning what had to be true before I jumped. Loyalty became clear boundaries. Passion became a specific member promise. Fear became numbers I can test. And 20 years of experience became an advantage I could finally use for my own vision. Opening the doors wasn't the finish line. My next job was making sure the club still felt personal at member 500, member 900, and member 1050. If there is an idea you keep returning to, maybe you don't need to blow up your life tomorrow. Maybe you need to build the smallest honest test, decide what must be true, and see what your experience makes possible now.